so-called divine war would determine the fate of humanity. And these demons were hiding just outside of the Western Territory? She thought she misheard. Turning her gaze towards the other witches, they were not surprised, as if they had known about it all along. Looking at Anna, this harmless-looking witch in front of them was seen as the secret weapon for this entire operation. Just how powerful were her abilities? Iffy did not have to wait long to know the answer. Roland asked everyone to stand back a bit and let Anna practice. Agatha waved in the direction of the hidden forest, and after a little while, several colorful balloons leaped out of the forest, rising into the sky. Iffy thought the distance was too far. If Anna couldn't fly, how could she ever hit these balloons? Roland stood beside Anna, letting her release her ability freely. Anna nodded, activating the divine seal imprint. Iffy then witnessed an incredible scene. The 4 gemstones shone at the same time. The metal pieces Anna was holding turned golden in an instant, and thunder rolled through the clear sky. Fringes of light cascaded from the clouds as if a sun was forming in the heavens. Before she could say anything, a blinding golden light burst from Anna's hand, rushing toward the balloons. The streaming flashes of lightning in the sky were also triggered, as if countless thunders were striking down, violently sweeping over where the target was along the trajectory of the golden light. Iffy felt as if she'd just seen a punishment from the gods. The deafening boom exploded next to Iffy's ears, causing a buzzing in her head, and she could not fully recover even after the light disappeared. Looking up at the now empty forest above, Iffy's body trembled slightly uncontrollably. She feared that even all the combat witches of the Bloodfang Association combined could not withstand this godly strike. Is this the true power of a high awakening witch? Roland was also witnessing the full casting process of the divine seal imprint for the first time. Roland looked at Nightingale and asked if all these electric lights were composed of magic power. Nightingale thought for a moment and said they should be. She could see the magical power within the lightning, but the color was a bit different. In the mist, Nightingale saw a dark, like void formed by the stone of God punishment. Roland approached Agatha and asked how much research she had done on the divine seal imprint. Agatha shook her head and said not much. After all, only the 3 seats of the Federation at the time were allowed to use the divine seal imprint, and their magical power was crucial in a real battle situation, so naturally, they could not be squandered on simple tests. Roland had a theory. The Stone of God punishment was not a void that restricted magical energy but contained extremely potent magic within itself, so powerful that it influenced the surrounding magic flow, rendering abilities non-functional. This also explained why the divine seal imprint rendered the balanced stone ineffective. Within its range, an interference zone similar to that of the Stone of God punishment was created, disabling the stone's operation. However, Agatha recounted that the witch responsible for observations had said that the balance stone ceased to function upon the release of the divine seal imprint, pausing mid-sentence as a sudden realization struck her. Roland continued, perhaps that witch's observations were obstructed by the intense light burst emitted by the divine seal imprint. But in Nightingale's mist world, only magical power possessed color. Even gazing directly at the sun would not affect her vision, which was why they had not noticed it before. Agatha pondered Roland's theory that the divine seal imprint could penetrate the Stone of God punishment because it had higher magical power. Roland nodded. Agatha seemed somewhat excited but then suddenly stopped. If it was truly affected because the magical intensity was too high, why didn't it happen with the witches themselves? Roland was stunned. Agatha pointed to Anna, wondering why the magical energy inside Anna could activate the divine seal imprint twice, theoretically saying Anna would have magical power higher than the Stone of God punishment. However, her blackfire couldn't penetrate the Stone of God's punishment, and no magic interference field appeared around her, which didn't make sense. Roland was momentarily speechless, unable to explain what went wrong. Even the lowest quality Stone of God punishment could easily interrupt a witch's abilities, including Anna's powerful blackfire. Agatha said she had queried why magic stones needed magic power infused to be effective. Agatha's mentor believed that only living beings could hold magical power. Roland fell silent, pondering what he might have overlooked. After thinking for a long time with no result, he had to put the matter aside, hoping to find answers later. What they needed to focus on was the operation in 3 days' time. 3 days quickly passed. Having completed a series of preparations, Roland personally saw off the departing personnel at the dock area. This was the first large-scale mixed military operation where witches were the protagonist. There were 2 steamships in total, carrying only the most elite veterans of the First Army. They had followed Roland during the very beginning on the city wall of the border town, fighting against the demonic beasts. Before the operation, Roland had repeatedly warned during selection that they might face a very vicious enemy, much stronger than the mixed-breed demonic beasts. Those unwilling to participate in the operation could speak up, but to his surprise, no one backed down. Anna came forward and softly hugged Roland. Lightning and Maisie also came over. In the end, apart from Agatha and Iffy, everyone hugged Roland one after another. Agatha, with her tsundere personality, said it was just a simple capture operation, not a life and death separation. If the city of Takira were to dawdle like this every time she went on an expedition, the demons would have built an outpost at the city gate by now. Iffy was utterly shocked, for Roland said it didn't matter if the operation wasn't accomplished, only that they returned safely. A lord who cared so much for witches was truly wonderful. Iffy knew she had made a compelling choice. Suddenly, Roland felt an invisible pair of hands cradle his face, familiar whispers telling him to take care of himself while she was not there. She would be back soon. Then, a gentle lip touch brushed his face. The touch came quickly and left just as swiftly, almost like an illusion. Roland, returning to his senses, reached forward, but felt nothing around him. The steamboat was much slower than the hot air balloon, taking nearly 2 days to reach the end of the Crimson Water River. 100 soldiers from the First Army set up defenses 2 kilometers from the operation site, not directly participating in the capture. Only in the event of an accident would they intervene. The hot air balloon flew low, bypassing the obstruction of the snow mountain, allowing Sylvie to directly observe the eye demon atop the Blackstone Tower. Maisie and Lightning supervised from beside the hot air balloon. As Sylvie couldn't see everything from such a distant position, Wendy sped up the hot air balloon, the snowy mountains slowly becoming clear, and a thin red mist appeared before everyone. Sylvie gazed towards the distance again, this time deliberately intending to alert the demons, to lure them into the trap set up in the forest. Suddenly, numerous eyeballs shifted directions simultaneously. Sylvie even saw her reflected face on the dark pupils. The feeling made her shudder, a chill climbing instantly to its peak up her spine. She yelled, "They're coming!" Maisie transformed into a massive beast. Sylvie leaped down, landing on her spacious back, while Lightning, carrying Wendy, followed close behind, both flying towards the hidden forest. Taking this opportunity, Sylvie turned to look back. 5 black dots appeared above the cliff. Of the 5 pursuers, only 4 rode on the giant beasts. Among them were 2 demons they had seen before, and 2 demons with no distinct facial features, their faces bearing a large scar, resembling the mask worn by Uchiha Obito from Naruto. With folds spreading from the center, as eerie as could be. When she directed her gaze at the last demon, she paused for a moment. It wore thick, exquisite armor and carried a massive greatsword on its back, looking immensely heavy, yet it flew just as fast as the 4 giant beasts. Sylvie's heart surged with turmoil. This was not expected, and Agatha hadn't mentioned how to handle this situation. Sylvie wondered if they should proceed with the capture as originally planned. The 4 of them quickly landed deep in the forest, and Lightning bolted upwards, intending to destroy the hot air balloon as planned. Sylvie wanted to stop her, but Lightning was too fast. Maisie asked, "What's wrong?" Wendy said that weren't they supposed to meet up with the First Army next after Lightning destroyed the hot air balloon? According to the plan, Wendy and Sylvie's powers weren't much help in capturing the demons, and to minimize unnecessary risk, they should distance themselves from the main battlefield and head towards the First Army's defenses after completing their baiting mission. Sylvie shook her head and said that the enemy was more than just the demons they had seen before. There were 2 types of new demons, and she had to inform everyone. Sylvie asked Wendy to go to the riverbank first, she and Maisie would be right back. Lightning accelerated to her utmost speed, the wind howling past her ears. She had to get back to the area where the hot air balloon was before the demons. She then needed to act panicked and flee to lure the enemies into the trap. Lightning dashed to the bottom of the balloon, found the explosive package fixed to the airbag, pulled out the delay igniter, and after seeing white smoke rising from the package, immediately plummeted towards the sea. It was a simple self-destruct device. Just as lightning descended to the sea surface, a loud bang resounded. The sky even seemed to brighten a fraction for an instant. She even saw a demon, who was too close, flipped over by the rolling flames, his body engulfed in a massive fire, plummeting into the sea along with his mount. The other 4 demons sprung out from beneath the smoke, heading straight towards her. So far, everything was going according to plan. Lightning headed toward the forest. Next, she needs to lead the demons into the forest. The capturing trap was already set up, silently waiting for the prey to take the bait. The dense branches, vines, and sawgrass would surely become a nightmare for the enemy. Just then, Sylvie and Maisie quickly found Agatha. Sylvie anxiously recounted to Agatha what she had seen, which left Agatha visibly shocked. Agatha, with an uneasy expression, explained that the robe-wearing demons were the fear demons. They were terrifying killers to ordinary humans, but witches were not afraid of them. They just needed to avoid eye contact. However, the armored demon that could fly independently was likely a high-ranking demon. Agatha's voice was serious as she shared that the Federation knew very little about them. All these high-ranking demons had several abilities and resembled humans, although much taller. Both their strength and magic were extremely powerful. Legend has it that only the transcendent witches could contend with them. Sylvie was worried. They had no transcendent witches at the moment. They must notify Leith and the others of a retreat plan. Agatha bit her lip, knowing that the high-ranking demon could fly because it was wearing a flying magic stone. If it were only Lightning and Maisie, it would be okay, but if there were many of them and they left Leith's protective range, they would not be able to escape its pursuit. But according to what Lord Acris had once said, these high-ranking demons were extremely powerful. Agatha immediately summoned Leith, telling her to notify all the witches to abandon the capture operation and to use the divine seal imprint to annihilate all the enemies. She instructed Nightingale to keep a close eye on the armored demon and kill it if she seized any opportunity. Sylvie couldn't help but hold Maisie tightly. Did they really have to confront a high-ranking demon? Agatha spoke seriously, saying that high-ranking demons rarely appeared alone, and right now it only had a few guards on its side. This was their best chance, and even without a resplendent witch, they might not necessarily lose. But exposing their backs to the enemy meant certain death. Going all out was their only chance of survival. Sylvie held her breath as 2 howls swept over the treetops, followed by the sound of heavy objects landing in front of them. Leith saw the armored demon persistently chasing Lightning, while the other demons dismounted and headed into the forest. Agatha told Sylvie to hide well here, while she will be heading over and killing the 3 giant beast mounts. Sylvie, full of concern, reminded Agatha to stay safe. Agatha smiled and said she had Maisie on her side. Maisie looked eager and then transformed into a giant beast. Just as the 3 giant beasts were impatiently waiting, another giant creature suddenly descended from the sky much larger than they were, landing behind them, swirling its wings around its tail, and letting out roaring noises. The 3 giant beasts' attention was immediately drawn. Sylvie was surprised to see that the 3 giant beasts were also spreading their wings and swinging their tails, looking almost as if they were dancing just like Maisie. Moreover, it was almost as if they were trying to show off. The 3 beasts didn't give way to each other, squeezing around on the grass, trying to impress the giant beast Maisie had transformed into. Agatha stretched out her hands, and the surrounding greenery instantly revealed white frost. Even snowflakes drifted in the air. The 3 beasts let out a scream, flapping their wings trying to fly, but found themselves unable to move. Their massive limbs had been frozen to the ground, ice crystals climbing up their legs. Almost simultaneously, Maisie lunged forward, viciously biting the neck of a dancing beast with her wide-open mouth. then used her tail to shatter the unfortunate one whose body had been turned into an ice block. The third one broke free and tried to escape. Agatha pursued closely, running along the ice bridge, turning it into an ice sculpture once more. Agatha shouted at Maisie, telling her to catch her. Maisie quickly flew over, and the ice sculpture crashed heavily to the ground, shattering instantly. Upon finishing the job, it was up to Nightingale and the others. Nightingale checked her ammunition and closed the bullet chamber. Just moments ago, she heard Leaf's warning, the capturing operation is halted, and now changed to annihilation, meaning Iffy's mission has been cancelled and she must take action herself. They need to create an opportunity for Anna to unleash the divine seal imprint. Leaf's voice sounded in her ear, telling her that the demons were there. And Nightingale immediately entered the mist and flanked towards the direction Leaf pointed out. Following Leaf through the mist world, Nightingale soon encountered 3 demons. The high-ranking demon that required particular attention was not among them. Undoubtedly, the feared demon should be the first to be dealt with. Nightingale held her guns and leaped forward, the muzzle directly against the back of a feared demon's head. The bullet hit, penetrating its skull, and another feared demon abruptly turned around, its bloody, scarred face splitting open, seemingly about to reveal its eyes. However, suddenly, vines descended from the treetops, entwining around its head, forcibly twisting it back. Meanwhile, the other melee demon, having heard the gunshot and turning around, locked eyes with the feared demon, freezing on the spot as its body began to tremble incessantly. Anna suddenly appeared, launching dark fire alongside Nightingale's bullets simultaneously, killing the 2 demons. Lightning, which had been luring enemies into the air, suddenly shouted a warning. Nightingale barely lifted her head and saw lightning was struck and crushed down into the forest. Then she noticed a huge sword coming down towards her. Instinctively wanting to escape into the mist, she found that the enemy wielding the sword was reaching out to her, and the black and white world that had appeared around her was shattered in an instant. What kind of power was this? It could disrupt magical power? Nightingale had no time to dodge, and as the sword was about to fall onto her, Anna suddenly appeared in front of her, using dark fire to form a barrier. The giant sword slammed onto the dark fire, and pain flashed across Anna's face, her body wavering, but the barrier made out of dark fire did not disappear. This time Nightingale didn't hesitate, she held Anna and resummoned the mist, retreating over 20 meters. The armored demon also slowly landed on the ground. The death of its companions seemed to have no effect on it. It calmly raised its giant sword, engraved with strange patterns, and magical power suddenly surged into the greatsword, the blade bursting into a dazzling light. Nightingale's eyes widened. This is bad. She did not see the demon unleashing energy into the magic stone, but a huge, lightless black hole forming in the enemy's hand, and then the demon forcefully stabbed the sword into the ground. A wave of lightning instantly swept through the entire forest. Leaf and Iffy were forcibly thrown from the trunk, falling heavily to the ground. Leaf spat out a mouthful of blood. It seemed she was injured. It looked like the demon had found out about Leaf's ability. But why did the demon release magic power, just like the Stone of God punishment? Nightingale shook her head. Now was not the time to think about this. She loaded a new bullet chamber and charged at the armored demon. Nightingale quickly pulled the trigger, but the bullets did not penetrate the enemy's body as usual. The remaining bullets were all blocked by the giant sword, and Nightingale felt a chill in her heart. Nightingale drew her dagger and leaped towards the demon's head. The demon turned around, slicing towards her back. Nightingale constantly evaded in the mist. She then found an opportunity. She stabbed the dagger towards the back of the demon's helmet. Suddenly, the dagger broke, and Nightingale withdrew in a hurry, unable to believe that this demon actually had a magical barrier. The armored demon, having recovered, followed closely, once again swinging its sword horizontally. Nightingale again entered the mist, but this time she was not so lucky. The armored demon swung its sword and simultaneously reached out to grab Nightingale out of the mist. Nightingale was forcibly pulled out of the mist. At the same time, the demon slashed at Nightingale with its sword. A long wound appeared on her waist, and the protective clothing made by Soraya was ripped open from the inside out. Nightingale grunted, ignoring the pain on her waist, and after landing, rolled back, trying to avoid the follow-up attack. The armored demon raised its giant sword, and just as it was about to chop it down, several purple lights appeared beside the demon and quickly closed in, making its limbs and body stick together tightly. It was Iffy's magic cage. Iffy couldn't crush the armored demon in front of her, its power was far greater than her. The enemy let out a deafening roar, raised both hands and shattered the cage, yet before it could raise its sword, another circle of light pillars came down, trapping it again. Nightingale suddenly heard Anna's voice, telling her to take Iffy away. Anna immediately activated the divine seal imprint, and the forest was suddenly bathed in a splendid golden light, with rays of light pouring down from the sky. The demon screamed, having likely witnessed such a scene before, its previously angry tone now mingled with a trace of fear, its struggles intensifying. Nightingale clutched her wound, fleeing the scene with Iffy. Iffy supported Nightingale, who was about to fall, noticing the severe wound on Nightingale's abdomen. Suddenly, Anna slumped, and Leaf caught her from behind. Nightingale looked at Anna, realizing she was now depleted of magical energy. Iffy quickly bandaged Nightingale after letting her sit down. Out of the swirling dust, a black figure slowly emerged. The demon, with several broken horns on its helmet, its exquisite armor covered in cracks, and its arm and giant sword nowhere to be found, but still alive. It walked towards them step by step. Nightingale and Leaf were seriously injured, Anna was unconscious, and Iffy's magical energy was almost depleted. Now, no one could fight the armored demon. After quickly bandaging Nightingale, Iffy stood up. Nightingale looked at Iffy, asking what she intended to do. Iffy, holding the dagger concealed in her clothes, proclaimed that she was going to fight until the last moment. Despite her nearly depleted magical energy, she was still a combat witch. Iffy told Nightingale to use her abilities to evacuate everyone. If she couldn't take everyone, at least take one. At that moment, a familiar roar sounded in the sky. The demon barely lifted its head before being smashed into the ground by the plummeting Maisie, the forceful impact making the ground tremble beneath Nightingale. Excited, Iffy and Leaf urged Maisie to bite the demon to death. The demon on the ground suddenly attacked Maisie's eyes, forcing her back into her original form. Agatha recognized the demon, and an ice spike rose from the ground, sending it flying again, breaking several tree trunks in the process. Not giving the enemy a moment to breathe, she pursued it, freezing its legs. Maisie, recovering, drew her pistol, firing continuously at the immobile target. Nightingale bit her lip, changing her bullets, asked Iffy to help her get up, and began shooting at the armored demon. The armored demon roared, swatting Agatha away with its hand, sending her flying through the air, the ice crystals under its feet vanishing instantly. Then it tried to flee, wobbling unsteadily through the air. Agatha screamed that they couldn't allow it to escape. Leaf grabbed the divine seal imprint from Anna, pouring all her magic into it. Although she was forcefully sent out from her forest state, she still had sufficient magical energy and she could stably light the fourth gemstone in the divine seal imprint during regular testing. Soon, the golden light filled the forest again, and the demon, turning its head, emitted a strange cry, seemingly in disbelief at the scene before it. Then golden thunderbolt instantly engulfed it. This time, the demon didn't make it through. Nightingale asked weakly, "Is the demon dead?" Maisie brought the high-ranking demon over, finding no signs of life. Agatha breathed a sigh of relief, expressing that their survival was a complete miracle. Nightingale, looking at her injured sisters, wondered how she would explain this to Roland when they returned. Agatha shook her head, stating that this was no ordinary victory. Their enemy was a magic slayer. Back in the Federation era, there was no way for a group of high-awakened witches to fight a magic slayer. Only the transcendent witches could defeat a magic slayer. This was a lesson learned in blood by the Federation. Leaf questioned, "What is the ability of a magic slayer?" Agatha clarified that it wasn't an ability, but a title. These high-ranking demons possessed numerous abilities, not awakened like a witch, but somehow developed within them. It was once observed that a high-ranking demon, having led numerous attacks on Takira over several years, developed 2 additional magical energies within itself, signaling the acquisition of at least 2 new abilities. No one knew how the demons managed to do this, but their utilization of magical power seemed innately superior to that of the witches. Nightingale recalled how the demon had pulled her out of the mist world earlier. Agatha said these demons have the ability to interrupt magical energy and even have a chance to breach the defense of the Stone of God punishment. Moreover, magic slayers can dispel magical effects and halt witches' abilities from taking effect. They are formidable adversaries to any witch. If he was still confused, why did Agatha say it's not an ability? Agatha took Anna for example. If Anna became a magic slayer, her fire ability would not be interrupted by the Stone of God punishment. At the same time, within the range of Anna's ability, all other magical abilities would be cancelled. Except the enemy was another magic slayer. Nightingale relayed what had happened, pondering if that was why the divine seal imprint failed to kill this high-ranking demon the first time. Agatha didn't have an answer, since this was her first encounter with a magic slayer. And previously, the Federation hadn't used divine seal imprints against magic slayers. The victories of the Federation's top 3 seats were achieved through their own power. That was where the true strength of transcendent witches lay. While wearing the Stone of God's punishment, they shone like the sun on the battlefield, melting away demons like butter. The strongest among them was Acarus. Unfortunately, there was only one Acarus. Nightingale thought for a moment, and even counting all 3 of the top seats in the Federation, there were only 3 transcendent witches. She wondered, has there ever been a witch who became a magic slayer within the Federation? Agatha shook her head. Perhaps witches can never become magic slayers, because there's an intrinsic difference between witches and demons. Maisie, who had been fiddling with the armor, suddenly flipped a box out of the dark remains. Opening it, several crystal-clear stones tumbled out. Pushing her white hair from her forehead, Maisie curiously checked the stone. Agatha, looking at the stones on the ground, recognized them as magic stones, and judging by their color, they seemed to be of high quality. Leaf chimed in, saying she didn't expect high-ranking demons to hide these inside their bodies. Excited, Maisie wondered whether the other demons might have similar boxes within them. She transformed and swiftly flew towards the other demon corpses. Agatha cautioned, "Be careful not to touch the jars containing the red mist." Soon, Wendy arrived, bringing soldiers from the First Army. She looked worriedly at Anna, who lay on Leaf. Leaf assured that Anna was just unconscious due to her magic being depleted. Lightning soon came over too, having been struck down by a demon while flying, and passed out. Nightingale went over and patted the little girl's head, thankful that Lightning was okay. Brian, looking at the demon's body, was shocked. So this was their enemy, a demon? Nightingale instructed Brian to have the soldiers transport everything back. The flesh, armor, clothing, and weapons, not leaving a single item behind, as per His Majesty's command. Hearing the order, Brian immediately became serious and assured it would be arranged. Agatha sighed regretfully for not having captured a living demon. Lightning tilted her head. Seems like there was one, but she was not sure. All eyes turned to her. Lightning continued, "If demons can swim, maybe it's still alive." In the afternoon, the ship left the river bank, turning back towards the city of Neverwinter. Within the cabin of one of the ships was surrounded by curious and puzzled First Army soldiers. Looking at the demon's body, it seemed no different from them, just taller. Someone muttered, "Didn't he see the witch ladies getting seriously injured?" Another soldier added that the other demon who died must have been incredibly ferocious, much more difficult to handle than the demonic beasts. Even Lady Anna almost fell victim. Thinking of Lady Anna's strength, the soldiers fell silent. That's why the witches' ladies were so cautious, chopping off the limbs of the demons. Nightingale returned to the deck, relieved that, despite the huge unexpected incident, they had successfully completed the mission. Agatha looked at her, asking if she needed to rest. Touching the wound on her waist, Nightingale nonchalantly waved her hand, saying she had been treated by Leaf. Before meeting His Majesty Roland, Leaf was responsible for all the injuries of the association. Agatha exhaled, glad that everyone was safe. She regretted her oversight during this entire operation. Nightingale comforted her, it wasn't her fault, no one expected a high-ranking demon to appear. Agatha looked towards the sea. She was also confused. These high-ranking demons always hid behind large armies, never acted alone, and were very scarce. She originally thought they would only encounter them after the red moon descended, but seeing those magic stones, she was no longer sure because there were too many magic stones on them. Nightingale quickly understood the implication in her words, but as soon as she did, a chill rose from the depths of her heart. The lifespan of demons, their growth limits, how they evolved, and methods of reproduction were all unknown. What had they developed into during these 400 years? If the enemy could accumulate so many magic stones, could they also accumulate a multitude of high-ranking demons? Gazing at the moonlight, the two of them hoped that when they found the answers, it wouldn't be too late. Edith and her brother finally arrived in the Western Territory, and this time there was someone following them. He invited Edith to find a clean hotel and then took them to stroll around the market, meticulously explaining that he could also serve Edith. Edith put on a grateful expression, slightly curtsying as she thanked the man for his help along the way. She said she would go to the town hall to seek help next, where she should be able to find news of her relatives. The man bid farewell to Edith in a gentlemanly manner, continuously waving at her as he left, saying he looked forward to their next meeting. Cole laughed, saying his sister was really popular. Edith glanced at him, asking what he should call her. Cole coughed twice and said, "Miss Edith." Looking at the border town, in a short period of time, the Western Territory was integrated into a new city, with a population and commercial trade both exceeding the previous royal capital. Such an extraordinary lord, however, had a bad title under his name. This piqued Edith's interest in Roland. A personal guard entered the office and reported that an envoy from the north was waiting outside the castle, hoping to be seen by Roland. The visitor was the second son of the current Duke of the Northern Territory, Calvin Cond. The guard reported that Minister Barev had already checked the credentials and family crest. Roland became interested and followed the guard to the meeting room. Along the way, the guard said that the envoy, Sir Cole, claimed that Duke Cond was willing to pledge allegiance to Roland. However, Roland felt this was somewhat troublesome. Entering the meeting room, there were only two people from the envoy group sitting at one end of the long table. One of them must be Duke's second son, Cole Cond. The other made Roland's eyes light up slightly. She was a woman of good looks and appearance. It seemed that she should be Cole's deputy, but for some reason, her aura was even more eye-catching than Sir Cole himself. Cole rose respectfully and quickly stated his purpose, mentioning that he also had a gift for Roland. Cole explained that the Hose and Lister families of the Northern Territory, two Count families, refused to obey King Roland's rule and even tried to conspire with other nobles to rebel. His father saw through their schemes early and meted out deserved punishments to both families. With a touch of regret, Cole said, but due to his negligence, he did not expect King Roland to return to the Western Territory early, and the two heads that were supposed to serve as evidence have decayed on the way. Roland looked at Cole, asking if his father executed the two counts directly. Cole glanced at the girl beside her and then nodded in affirmation. The level of allegiance was more intense than Roland had anticipated. Offering the heads of two counts as a letter of credence meant that they would find it hard to gain support from other territories' nobles again, at least significantly reducing the possibility of them uniting to resist Roland's own territory. Roland thought to himself, but with Nightingale not around at the moment, he didn't know whether the other party was trying to deceive him. He pondered for a moment, then whispered to Barev at his side, "Are these two families in the Northern Territory?" Barev slowly explained in Roland's ear that these two families were even more prominent than the 5 major families in the Western Territory. However, the Cond family of the Duke emerged prominently only 50 years ago. Barev said he hadn't expected Timothy to pick their family as the ruler of the Northern Territory. Even if it was to contain the other two families, if there was a significant disparity in strength, it would be difficult to play its due role and could easily cause dissatisfaction among the established families. It seems that what Cole said should be true, Barav whispered. This is related to the honor of the nobility. If Roland agrees to accept their allegiance and it gets out and is proven to be a lie, the Northern Territory will fall into chaos first. Roland smiled at Cole and expressed his gratitude to the Duke. Upholding the royal honor is the duty of every noble, and Cole's father did it well. Moreover, the two counts got what they deserved, and the kingdom would not hold Duke Kand accountable for this. Cole seemed to breathe a sigh of relief and thanked His Majesty Roland, saying his father would be very pleased to hear this. His father had always hoped to serve a true king, and now he finally had the chance. Roland nodded, saying he was also happy to accept the Duke's allegiance, provided he could comply with Greycastle's new laws. Cole was slightly taken aback, having not heard of the new laws. Roland explained that he would be taking away some of the nobles' power. In the future, there will be no more feudal nobles in the kingdom. Simply put, within Greycastle, all territories will have only one true ruler, and that is the king. Cole's expression changed drastically, turning once again to look at his assistant. Roland looked at the young man in front of him, telling him not to worry. The nobles were still nobles, their luxurious lives would not change, and they even had the opportunity to reach new heights. He had Barav give Cole a brochure, which contained all of the new laws, and told him that the Change-Gu stronghold had fully implemented this set of laws. Cole opened the brochure and read a few pages, his face blank and slightly tense. Cole's performance left Roland slightly disappointed, but on second thought, it was normal. After all, he was a kid. Presumably, his role in this trip was only to convey a message and he could not make decisions. He told Cole to first convey the message to Duke Kand, and before getting a reply, he could stay in the city of Neverwinter and seek around for himself. Cole anxiously looked at the woman next to him. The woman did not speak. She then patted him on the back. Just Roland thought that the talk would end here, but unexpectedly, Cole made another request. Cole asked if he could participate in seeing how Roland's territory manufactures steamboats and steam engines. This was indeed an intriguing request, and Roland looked at him with interest, wondering if he was interested in this. Cole said he was very fascinated by this kind of peculiar vessel. Roland nodded, instructing Barav to make arrangements. After dealing with the envoy, Roland returned to his office. Lightning was sprawled on the window with Maisie pecking at the glass above her head. A tightness instantly gripped Roland's heart. It was only the third day, and the crew should not have returned so quickly. Had something happened? He opened the large windows, hurriedly asking, "What happened?" The two pounced on Roland, exclaiming they had caught a demon. When he heard from Maisie that Anna and Nightingale were injured, and then Lightning added that it was not a big deal, Roland felt his heart go on a roller coaster ride. He exhaled, then questioned if they were really both right. Both nodded in unison. He turned and ran out of the room to call someone to bring Nanawa over, and told the two to finish what they were saying in one breath next time. In the evening, two steamboats finally appeared at the dock of the Crimson Water River. Seeing Anna and Nightingale walk down, Roland completely relaxed. He smiled, opening his arms to Anna. Anna quickly plunged into his arms, hugging him tightly. Nightingale sighed, saying Roland should have waited for them in the castle, as the dock was not safe. Anna released Roland and also pulled Nightingale over. Roland opened his arms and hugged Nightingale as well. Then it was Wendy, Leaf, and all the witches hugged Roland one after another. Agatha and Iffy were no exception. 2 canisters of red mist had already been used on the road, one was damaged in battle, and the remaining supply could only last until the following evening. If Agatha was to attempt to create a magical seal experiment, it must begin before noon the next day. Roland inquired about the lethal effects of the red mist on witches, asking how Agatha would change the canisters. Pointing to the container on one side, she explained that she would have ordinary people assist with connecting the tubes, and she also brought back those smaller storage canisters, which might be useful in the future. Roland nodded. Next, he turned to Breeze and asked if she could control the demon to use magic power. Breeze responded, "It should be possible." Roland then asked Nanoa to assist in attaching the limbs back to the demon. Axe brought over the limbs, and with Nanoa's magic, the demon was assembled. After a few minutes, without making a sound, the demon crawled up from the ground and slowly left the shed. Breeze utilized her power, and under her control, the creature stood upright, all while remaining under her control as it exited the ship cabin. Leaf reported that the test field was ready. The demon grabbed a long stick. This was the weapon the demon had carried out. Its arm swelled and the magic stone embedded in its arm emitted a faint yellow light. It forcefully threw it at the target, a white shadow flashed by, and a crisp humming sound emanated from the armor in the distance. The spear completely penetrated the chest plate and was firmly stuck in the wall. Upon removal, it was evident that the spearhead had shattered upon impact. If replaced with an iron short spear, the power might be slightly greater. However, considering the demon's attire, it seems that the enemy's use of iron weapons is even more mediocre than humans. Even the armor of high-ranking demons doesn't seem to be purely metallic. The next test was rapid throwing. The demon, controlled by Breeze, was forced to throw 2 spears as fast as he could, emitting painful roars. It seems that even if its body was controlled, it couldn't avoid the agony brought about by the overuse of the magic stone. After the throw, its arms sagged down. This time, both spears shattered upon hitting the 3mm steel plate. It's observable that the most threatening attack of the demon is comparable to a revolver rifle. While a bolt-action rifle could easily penetrate the steel plate at this distance. After reaching this conclusion, Roland breathed a sigh of relief. With these melee demons as the basic combat power, they did not surpass the operational effectiveness of conventional firearms. At a distance of 500 to 1,000 meters, machine guns and artillery could pulverize all standing enemies, meaning that at least on the frontal battlefield where the two armies met, humans certainly had the power to fight. How wonderful it would be if Roland were born into Kara, Agatha sighed, looking at the weapon in Roland's hands. Back then, they have 100 times more people than Grey Castle, and so is the case with witches. If everyone had a firearm, perhaps the demons would have been driven back where they came from a long time ago. Roland smiled, but he did not think so. After all, over 400 years ago, it was a kingdom run by witches. If there truly were a weapon that could give commoners power beyond that of witches, would the Federation willingly accept its existence? In any era, witches were a minority. Whether that's now, or 400 years ago. While there were millions of commoners, there were only a few thousand witches. And those commoners who had been oppressed for a long time, would they willingly step onto the battlefield? Of course, he wouldn't say these thoughts aloud. Agatha was just a researcher, and it's better not to involve her in political affairs. Next, they tested the demon's resistance to gunfire on various parts of its body, as well as the effects of various chemicals, church pills, and dream water. Lucia was also asked to try and separate the components of the red mist to see what could be obtained. Unfortunately, they could not keep demons for a long time, and Agatha needed to prepare to make the magical seals. Agatha thought something and then shook her head. Seeing that Agatha did not want to continue speaking, Roland did not ask further. Edith stood by the window, gazing at the city in the night. Merchants often say that candlelight signifies wealth, and in this border town, the market is packed with people even during the night. She thought she would only see brightly lit scenes in the pubs or theaters in the inner city area of the royal capital, but here, everything began to surprise her. Suddenly, the sound of knocking outside the bedroom interrupted Edith's thoughts. Cole poked his head in, mentioning that the water was still hot, and asked if his sister wanted to continue her bath. Edith shook her head, telling him to have the servants heat a new basin, then asked Cole if he had figured out how the water system worked here. Cole scratched his head, explaining that the water was released from the tubes. It seemed to flow from those tall iron towers, but as for how the water got pumped up from the wells, he couldn't get a clear answer from the locals. He urged Edith to try the soap, praising how excellent it was for cleaning the body. Edith couldn't help but silently wonder. Was this also a deliberate arrangement by His Majesty? The envoy group's residence, located near the castle area, was a 4-story building, its top floor even higher than the castle. It not only offered a view of the city of Neverwinter nightscape but also boasted cleverly arranged and equipped rooms. Although not large, they were extremely comfortable to live in. The official from the city hall who received them mentioned that this place was specially prepared by His Majesty for foreign envoys and seemed to be called the diplomatic building. In Edith's eyes, whether it was the clear water that gushed out endlessly when the valve was turned or the soap that Cole praised incessantly, they were likely deliberate displays arranged by Roland Wimbledon. During the afternoon, the two also visited the steam engines. Cole didn't understand what was so beautiful about these black blocks, but King Roland seemed to think they were. Edith closely inspected the steam engine, agreeing with Roland's assertion that this was truly beauty. The beauty brought about by the power of technology, a form of beauty incomparable to jewels and garments. How did Roland come to acquire such knowledge? Edith wondered as she gazed out of the window. What else did he know beyond this? Edith, sitting in a chair, asked her brother what he thought of the new laws. Cole, hesitating, responded that he would write a letter to inform their father of the conditions laid out by His Majesty tomorrow, but he didn't think their father would agree. Edith said nothing. Seeing that his sister did not deny it, Cole gained a little more courage. He had read the new laws, and agreeing to them meant handing over their territory and giving up on their power. This was not a promotion, but a clear demotion. Edith nodded with a smile, agreeing that Cole made a good point, but he overlooked one thing. Cole looked at his sister, puzzled. Edith slowly stood up. Could they really hold on to these positions and power? She asked Cole why they granted lands to their knights and vassals. Cole responded that doing so ensured their loyalty and attracted more people to join them. Edith nodded, then asked, what if their father kept all the land to himself? Cole thought for a moment. If that happened, everyone would leave the Northern Territory. Those without land would go elsewhere, other nobles would also gradually leave, and in the end, only their family would remain. Edith looked at her brother. Wouldn't that be good? Cole blinked, seemingly perplexed as to why his sister would ask such an apparent question. The North was so vast, how could they possibly manage it all? Even collecting taxes and grains on a usual basis was quite troublesome. Edith did not respond directly but said that this was also what His Majesty considered to be the main cause of the feudal system. It ultimately arose from the need for war and limitations in management capabilities. Edith sighed. However, the situation has changed now. No matter how they expanded their forces, they could not withstand a strike from His Majesty, whose army was unmatched in the entire kingdom. At the same time, His Majesty firmly believed that the city hall could manage the affairs of the whole territory, and thus there was no need to grant lands to the nobles anymore. Cole opened his mouth, but was unsure how to respond. Edith spoke slowly. Roland Wimbledon believes that such a regime, with unified management and planning, could better utilize the resources of the entire territory, tap into the potential of the people, take power away from the noble, and grant the citizens the power to vote and choose, and thus unleash powerful productivity throughout the kingdom. Cole stepped back a couple of steps thinking this was all nonsense. What was productivity? A competition of who could farm better. Where would Roland find enough people? Without nobles, who would collect the grain and taxes? Most commoners didn't care who was king. Edith was also very curious about this point, so they decided to visit again tomorrow, and this time, she would speak. The next day, the test reports were sent to Roland's desk. The demons' bodies were not invincible. Both firearms and blades could cause their fatal injuries, but perhaps due to different physiological structures, the damage effects of toxins and chemicals were minimal. For example, chlorine, nitrous oxide, and carbon monoxide did not affect the demons, and neither did dream water or the church's pills. Dream water did not make them sleep, and the church's pill could not cause them to react violently. As for the red mist, once decomposed, it turned into several gases and water. After testing by Kyle, it was confirmed that a part of it could burn and emit a foul odor, while another part was nitrogen, with the remaining components unidentified. Moreover, when the temperature rose to 300 degrees, the red mist would decompose more quickly, and approaching 800 degrees, the mist would even ignite. Roland filed the report away in a drawer. For now, it seemed that besides conventional firearm weapons, fire was also a good choice to deal with the demons, at least in dispersing the red mist. The effect of high temperature was very significant. When attacking the enemy camp, a large fire might be able to instantly reverse the situation of the demons fighting on home ground. The guard knocked and entered, stating that an envoy from the Northern Territory sought to visit Roland. Roland was slightly surprised, it had only been one day. After a moment of silence, he ordered, "Take them to the meeting room and inform Carter to lock down the diplomatic building, temporarily preventing the rest of the Northern envoys from going out." Roland thought to himself, since the other party couldn't recognize the policies he was going to implement, he might as well forcibly keep them here. When Roland entered the meeting room, this time it wasn't Cole standing in the front, but rather the girl sitting beside him yesterday. The girl stood up and performed a standard noble courtesy, introducing herself as Edith Kahn, the eldest daughter of the Duke of Northern Territory, and also Cole's sister. She apologized for Cole forgetting to introduce her identity last time and hoped Roland would forgive it. Roland became interested. It turned out this girl was the real leader of this envoy group. Edith looked at Roland and said that this time her father had entrusted her with full responsibility, and the Duke's seal had also been handed over to her. Roland nodded. He knew that in this era, it was quite rare for a woman to participate in politics, let alone a young, beautiful girl. After both parties sat down, Roland asked what the purpose of visiting him was this time. Edith picked up the brochure that Roland had given her, stating she had several questions. Roland thought she would tactfully express her inability to accept these conditions, but he didn't expect her to come over and discuss politics with him. Looking at her sincere eyes, Roland realized she was serious. Edith's first question was, without the assistance of the nobles, how could Roland effectively manage the vast territories of the kingdom? Roland answered, the people, and the advancement of technology. He then explained slowly, allowing common folks to get an education, and through the training from the city hall, allow the common folks to help govern the kingdom. Edith then asked several more questions, such as how to prevent administrative officials from neglecting their duties, how trade would be distributed throughout the kingdom after unification, and whether productivity could truly serve as a standard for measuring policies. Roland answered each one, without any pause, and the more she asked, the brighter Edith's eyes shone. It wasn't until close to noon that she exhaled deeply, realizing that Roland indeed knew what he was doing. Both of them took a sip of tea. Edith asked if Roland could provide the Northern Territories with steam engines, as well as the production equipment and personnel for the steamships. Roland replied he couldn't provide the personnel at the moment, but he could allow people from the Northern Territory to come and learn. The prerequisite is that the Northern nobles comply with his administration. As for the steamship, that's possible too. As long as Edith pays enough gold, none of these are issues. Edith was somewhat surprised by Roland's forthrightness. After a moment of contemplation, she further inquired, according to Roland's plan, if Roland waited just 10 more years, he could easily take over the entire Grey Castle. By then, promoting the new policy would face no resistance, and Roland wouldn't need to concern himself with anyone's opinions. Why is Roland so eager now? Roland fell silent for a while before finally saying, if Edith really wants to know the answer, follow him to see something. Roland led Edith into a wooden hut deep within the forest. Agatha was somewhat irritated, annoyed that Roland would bring people to disturb her while she was crafting the magic seals. Upon seeing the demon, limbs severed, lay flat on a long table, surrounded by various bottles and jars. Edith let out an incredulous gasp. She was more in shock than fear. Agatha was in the final stages of extracting its blood. Roland explained, this is the greatest enemy humanity now faces. The war between them isn't about territory or wealth, it's about who gets to continue existing. The loser will be utterly annihilated. The weight of this information overwhelmed Edith. Roland continued slowly telling her that the church had concealed this story, but the demon's origins could be traced back 1,000 years. It's also known as the Divine War. Only after Roland and Edith departed did Agatha let out a sigh of relief. She felt her attitude towards Roland wasn't great. Perhaps she should be more courteous to Roland. Even with such thoughts, she still didn't like anyone but witches entering her workshop, especially when she was about to craft magic seals. Moreover, she didn't want anyone, even Roland, to know the methods of magic seal making. However, she realized that this secret would soon be impossible to keep. Just then, there was another knock outside the shed. This time, Anna and Nanoa entered. They were about to craft 4 types of magic seals. When the blue blood flowed through the coated tubing onto the stone of God punishment, the two blended, releasing a stream of bubbles. The stone melted like a burning candle. Anna carefully observed the transformation, and Agatha explained, magic can alter one's physical capability. Higher awakened witches have noticeably better physical qualities than ordinary witches, while those transcendent witches reach the pinnacle in this aspect. To enhance the magic seal's efficacy, the best magic seals always use the blood of powerful demons combined with the highest quality stone of God punishments. They soon reached the final step. Relying solely on demons is insufficient, Agatha calmly stated. A witch's contribution is also essential. Nanoa covered her mouth in shock. Agatha continued, the Federation stumbled upon this secret by chance. The blood of a witch, when mixed with that of a demon, can create a unique effect. It makes the melted stone of God punishment maintain a state. Even after a long period, its magical circuitry remains intact. The liquid in the first container settled and emitted a grayish glow, resembling blue wax after it was cooled. She then picked up a small knife from the table, making a cut on her hand. After collecting half a cup of her blood, she asked Nanoa to heal the wound for her. This was precisely why Agatha had chosen the two. Anna was the most adept learner among the witches in the Witches' Union, suitable to inherit this knowledge, while Nanoa, on the other hand, could alleviate her pain effectively. If it hadn't been for Roland showing her hope in defeating demons and his unbiased attitude toward witches, she would have preferred to bury the secrets of magic seal-making forever. Even within the Federation, the idea that witch blood could blend perfectly with demons was hard for most to accept. Even she had her doubts about the origin of witches when she first encountered this. Such confusion was detrimental to the Divine War. Therefore, the crafting of the magic seals was one of the closely guarded secrets within the Federation. Finally, Agatha poured the blood inside. The red blood flowed through the shallow trench, while the surrounding blue blood chunks wriggled, their edges blurring and merging into one another. Next, she infused the seal with magical energy. Both Anna and Nanoa watched in shock. It was almost like the magic seal was alive. The next step was to cut it and seal it with silver foil. Depending on the type of magic seal, the final steps are always different. Some needed cutting, while others didn't. It wasn't a 100% success rate either, but if it failed, the solution was simple: just pry out the stone and start over. Anna frowned, but it requires a lot more blood. Agatha nodded and responded, that's why, in Takara, demon blood is even more precious than a witch's. Agatha sighed and continued, back in the Federation, during experiments, if a witch's blood is wasted, no one cares. But if they lose demon's blood, reprimands and punishments are inevitable. While preparing the second batch of seals, as Agatha was about to make another cut, Anna stopped her. Anna proposed to use her blood this time. Anna pointed out that Nanoa could heal wounds but couldn't replenish blood. His Majesty once said that excessive blood loss could cause dizziness and even fainting. Just as Agatha was about to decline the offer, Anna suggested Agatha rest for 2 days before resuming her work. Telling her to consume more meat porridge and animal liver during this period would speed up recovery. Is this also what His Majesty said? Agatha asked. Anna nodded. Anna knew the purpose of Agatha choosing her as an assistant to learn the methods of magic seal making. She might as well handle these next 2 batches. Agatha remained silent for a moment, then nodded. Back in the castle, Edith took a while to process everything before finally speaking. Roland wouldn't have concocted such an unbelievable tale just to deceive her. She wondered if demons were truly that powerful. Roland nodded. Not only are demons individually powerful, but their numbers are also staggering. Roland's army can easily defeat Timothy's knights, but victory against demons is not guaranteed.